Hey guys, last year I purchased the Speed Code by PJF Performance, and in this video I'll be reviewing the full program, having completed it this last winter. My background is in track sprinting, so hopefully I can bring a level of expertise to this review which not everyone can offer. PJF Performance is run by a coach called Paul Fabritz, whose best known program is Vert Code Elite. This is something I've reviewed several years ago, and I enjoyed it enough that I thought I'd see what he offers in the form of speed training. For this program, he teams up with speed performance coach Les Spellman, who appears in some of the technical drill videos. You also see exercises demoed by Riley Smith, known for his insane 50-inch vertical jump. The program is 5 phases and 12 weeks long, starting with 2 foundational programs and moving on to some intermediate training blocks. It's a 6-day-a-week program. 3 days are core and mobility, and the other 3 generally fall into acceleration, max velocity, and agility. The phases have enticing names like Freak Athlete Foundations and Cheetah Mode, but ultimately you can think of it as beginner followed by intermediate programming. The 2 main ways to access the program are online or via the app. Each exercise links to an unlisted YouTube video, and logging in gives you access to other resources like recovery protocols, a few nutritional videos, and some speed tutorials featuring Les Spellman. While Vert Code Elite had the option of a monthly rolling subscription, for the Speed Code, it's a one-off payment of $120. I'll quickly cover core and mobility because there's not much to say. These sessions appear on days 2, 4, and 6, and within a phase, you'll pretty much do the same exercises on each day. He generally picks 6 exercises and repeats them 3 times, usually an even split between core and mobility, meaning 9 sets of each. What I'll do now is run you through the phases. So the first phase is called Healthy Human. This is a very similar approach to the first phase of Vert Code Elite, which was called Building a Base. In his podcast, Paul mentioned how many people managed to improve their performance having only followed the first phase of a program, which was not his intention. It's just an indication that your weak points can really hold you back, and addressing those can make a significant difference. The focus in Healthy Human was on movement patterns, learning to both load and drive from the hip, reach the correct shin angles for acceleration, and also some foundational strength and extensive plyometric work, meaning high volume, low intensity. There are some basic running drills and some 10-meter exercises with a weighted sled, but no sprinting or hard accelerations. This is very similar to what my sprint coach would do with us in the first few weeks following our off-season. We called them break-in weeks. It's physically preparing you for what's to come without leaving you too tired or sore. The intensity steps up slightly in phase 2, titled Freak Athlete Foundations. Again, given the name, this is more of a preparation period for what's to come. Some of the exercises are the same, but with a progression. One of my favorites was the load and lift, which now becomes a banded version. The sled drills move from shoulder to waist harness, and the max velocity day sees me put on my sprint spikes and run on the track. The main focus on the max velocity day is 20-yard wicket drills, with the cones laid out as described in the resources section, lengthening every few strides. I used my Bluetooth timing gates here, eventually running a flying 20 meters in 2.35. My best ever flying runs are around 2:15, so 2:35 represents about 90% pace. Agility was a bit of a change for me. I haven't played rugby in about 10 years, which is the last time I've had to change direction quickly. There's a lot of partner exercises here, and in general, it feels like the programming is designed for coaches to use with a group of athletes rather than for individuals. He does offer alternatives for people training alone, but some exercises are clearly designed to be done in pairs. Phases 1 and 2 are listed as beginner, while phases 3 to 5 move to intermediate. There's another step up in intensity as we move to explosive athlete development. The acceleration day sees you measure out the first 7 strides based on your 40-yard time, and there's a 4-step drill with the arms holding an object across your back, followed by a 7-step acceleration from a kneeling start. This helped me because I was probably reaching too much in those first strides, and it's sometimes hard to find the balance between stride length and frequency in the first 10 meters. There were some 2 and 3-point starts, which I really appreciated. My 20-meter times were equivalent to what I did for most of last winter season. The max velocity day was refreshingly simple, lots of drills, then wicket runs and flying 20s, followed by a few exercises I was already familiar with, like a Bosch snatch, and a great one for hamstring injury prevention, eccentric Nordic curls. The agility day was quite short. Highlights for me included the lateral bound with dumbbell, split stance contrast jumps, and a lateral drill, which is a direction I rarely move in. I actually had to repeat week 1 twice due to a bout of norovirus, which took a lot out of me, including 3 kilos in weight, and it wasn't until midway through week 2 that I felt fully recovered. The final 2 phases are 3 weeks long, meaning this is the halfway point in the program. There was a lot of volume on the acceleration day, around 25 total sprints, though nothing beyond 20 meters. Since I'm not training for a sport with a change of direction, I did feel like some of the agility-like sprints towards the end of the workout were basically junk volume for me, but I completed them nonetheless. I like the triple broad jump. I'm convinced that repeat broad jumps are a key exercise for explosive power. Max velocity was more of the same, a slightly higher volume of wicket drills in which I ran similar times to previous phases. Flying runs, again, 112 or 113 per 10 meters. Given how cold it was, I thought I might be capable of a few hundredths quicker in warmer weather. The session ends with overcoming isometrics, which is a 5-second max effort against an immovable object. I've seen these in jump programs and I believe they're helpful. The agility sessions were about 75 minutes and varied enough that I enjoyed them. I was concerned about my hamstring because these workouts didn't have much of a warm-up before going into flat-out running. One of the first exercises was a 40-yard weaving sprint. The final phase, bright lights, is where everything is supposed to come together. This is effectively a taper with a reduction in training volume and an emphasis on high intensity and quality sprinting. The acceleration session mainly revolved around 10, 20 and 30 meter sprints from a 3-point start. This is much closer to what I know of as speed training, and I love this session, though my fast 20 meter times didn't carry through to 30 meters. That may be because so many of the accelerations are capped at 20 meters, so there aren't as many opportunities to work on that transition to upright running. The max velocity session was a drop in volume with a continued focus on wickets and flying runs. This session finished with some single leg dunk practice, which I found incredibly awkward. Phase 5 agility was great. I moved from grass to a harder surface. I can see the argument for training on the surface you compete on, but I wanted to train on a surface that allows you to exert maximal forces without fear of slipping, which is what I could do here. These workouts finished with 2-footed dunk practice, which is much more my forte. I've previously done several years of jump programs, and it was really satisfying to revisit that movement pattern. In terms of measuring the results, I chose some key exercises and tested them several times following the end of the program. I also had 2 indoor 60-meter races, which were 1 and 3 weeks after the end of phase 5. Firstly, my broad jump. During my usual summer sprint training, I hover around 250 centimeters. I improved this to 260 after a Russian strength program, and while I was able to match that a few weeks after finishing the speed code, week to week I was only seeing 245, though some of that was due to the illness. My standing 5 bound was a relatively new addition. I managed 12.6 meters a few times in the summer, going beyond 13 meters after the Russian program, and falling a little shy of my summer numbers after the speed code. My 30 meter time is just over 4.2 seconds, not including reaction. I brought that down a little from the Russian program and was able to maintain it through the speed code. That brings me to my 60-meter races. This is my 3rd season since becoming a masters athlete. In year 1, I opened with 768 and moved to 763. In year 2, I opened with 768 and ended on 762. And this year, I could only manage 783 as an opener, bringing it down to 778 2 weeks later. My race execution was good, but not great. And since I have my free lap timing system, I can tell you exactly where I'm falling behind compared to previous years, and that is my top speed. By competition time, I'm usually hitting flying runs in 1.07 per 10 meters. And after the speed code, I was only managing 112, meaning from 30 to 60 meters, I'm losing around 15 hundredths of a second. I've previously done a very detailed analysis of my winter sprint program, which I initially followed at university. And across 3 track sessions, I was doing around 400 meters a week of top speed work. I've added the legend for the 3 speed code sessions, but you only touch top speed on the dedicated max velocity day, where the volume is around 150 meters. Not only that, but at least half of that is wicket drills, which can only be done at about 90% speed, in my case between 116 and 118 per 10 meters. As far as the overall program is concerned, the second I started reading it, I could tell it was designed for athletes in team sports rather than individuals. The fact that 1 day each week is dedicated to agility tells you it was not written for athletes who only run in a straight line. When it came to the sprint-specific parts of the program led by Les, it was all very familiar to me. That's because most sprinters do variations of the same running drills and sprint the same distances. For example, on the acceleration day, there are 5 key drills that appear in all 5 phases to some extent. If you check out Les Spellman's own YouTube channel, you can find nearly everything that appears in Speed Code for free. So the 5 drills are the ones I've linked in the description below. The same is true of the dribble drills, which I've been doing since 2006. One important point about sprint drills is that you can only go so far with a video explanation, and unless you have exceptionally good proprioception, that is a feeling for the exact position your body is in, then it would help to have some sort of external review of your drills, whether that's from a coach, a training partner, or even just setting up a camera and filming yourself doing them. In the main sprint sessions, I was critical of the rest periods between the longer accelerations and in particular the flying runs. I'm used to the rule of resting 1 minute per 10 meters run as a minimum. A lot of the time here, he was asking you to go again after 60 or 90 seconds. If you want to improve your top speed, you need to be running very close to your best, which means a full recovery between runs. For the exercises from pull, the foundational work on shin angles and body position was something I really appreciated, as small changes can translate really well into faster times later on. He also included a few exercises which had levels 1 to 4, which you were to progress as you mastered each one, and I thought those were a great way to build up to a more complex movement pattern. I was really surprised by the lack of volume of weight training, considering the emphasis he puts on it in Vert Code Elite. I was expecting to see some of the exercises he included there, like rear leg elevated split squats, speed squats, Romanian deadlifts, and high pulls. Instead, the lower body volume was very limited, with a lot of isometrics or exercises that were a blend of mobility and strength. Going back to my graphs, in the early season of my university program, my lower body volume was about 6,000 kilos per session, dropping to 5,000 across a whole week in the second half of the program. By that, I mean if I were to squat 100 kilos for 10 reps, that would be 1,000 kilos of volume. In the speed code, there was 400 kilos in phase 1, which was a squat variation, and then nothing. He does use a lot of bands and isometrics, which are harder to quantify, and there's resistance in the sled sprints, but there are no traditional weightlifting exercises. That may have been deliberate, as people are often critical of the amount of equipment needed to complete his programs, but for me, it was disappointing. Overall, I would say this is a reasonable speed program, but absolutely not worth the money for a pure sprinter like myself. Obviously, there's going to be more value if you're buying this as a coach and using it to train an entire sports team or even several teams. If it's a sport like basketball where you're not going to be hitting top speed, then the lower volume of max velocity work won't be considered a negative. And I do believe he has great exercise selection when it comes to agility, change of direction, and injury prevention. Seeing how many online programs he's now churning out through PJF Performance, I think maybe the quality has dropped. And given how much free content there is on the internet, including from Les Spellman himself, you are probably better off saving your money. For those interested in seeing what a real sprint program looks like, I have a very detailed breakdown of my university program, which I followed in the last 2 seasons. While it's not a professional program, it did allow other guys in my training group at university to run as low as 10.6 in the 100 meters. If you do watch it, the idea is not to copy it exactly. It's about giving you a nice overview of the different elements that make up a solid sprint program. Thanks for watching.